Hey skiers, I'm Jeff from Skiessentials.com. Welcome to our weekly Top 5 Fridays ski industry news videos. You've probably noticed that Bob's not sitting with me today. That's because today is Bob's 10-year wedding anniversary. So join me in congratulating Bob and his wife on 10 years of happy marriage. I think they're off riding mountain bikes somewhere, like some kind of ridiculous 30-mile mountain bike ride or something like that. So I hope he's having fun. I'm sure Bob will be back next week for those of you that miss him. And yeah, with that said, I think we can get straight into the news. To start, we have some ski racing news. Obviously, the season's over now, or at least the FIS World Cup season is over now, but we still get ski racing news kind of trickling in over the summer. The U.S. Ski and Snowboard Congress just wrapped up. It's basically a big annual meeting. Last year it was a bit contentious because the main subject was COVID, lots of stuff to figure out with COVID, and then kind of the subject of collegiate ski racing and the kind of butting heads between the NCAA and the FIS organization, those discussions kind of started last year around this time. This year it was much more pleasant and agreeable, according to all the reports that we've seen. And it kind of feels like part of that was thanks to the fact that it was a pretty darn successful year for the U.S. ski team. Two kind of big things came out of this meeting in our opinion. The first is just a kind of general agreement to continue strengthening that bond between the U.S. ski team and collegiate athletes. You know, we've talked about this a lot over the past couple of months or so. Just creating a better pipeline for these athletes and potentially channeling some of them ultimately onto the U.S. ski team. Second, there's an introduction of a new tiered system for regional FIS races. So this all sounds pretty cool. Each region would have a divisional tier for up and coming racers, as well as an elite tier for kind of that next level racer. And a couple benefits here. You know, one, we're kind of grouping athletes into more competitive fields. So those developmental athletes in the divisional segments, they'll kind of have a better pathway, or at least a better group of people to kind of compare their skiing against and see whether they can kind of take it to that next level. It's also going to significantly reduce cost for those divisional athletes or the divisional tier. So if you're in that tier, you will be competing pretty much only within your region, which is going to reduce travel expenses and all that kind of stuff, you know, lodging, everything that goes along with traveling to ski races. So pretty cool. You know, it'll be really interesting to see how this pans out next season. But it all sounds great to me. And then a couple other changes. The U19 National Championship will return to U18 as it previously was. And another update, U14 racers will no longer be eligible for U16 races. I assume the reason for that is just kind of, you know, keep the fields a little bit separated. You don't want to like oversaturate things, and it's challenging running an event when you've got just too many people. So I'm sure that plays into it as well. If you want to learn more, read more about what they talked about and what came out of this meeting, the link is in the description of this video, as it always is. So good to see some positive news out of that annual Congress. Second topic of the week, and this one's kind of, I'm seeing more and more of this. In fact, last week somebody commented on Top 5 Fridays and said this, calls to boycott the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics are growing in intensity. A growing number of people are calling for the boycott and are doing so. They're more open about it, more forward about it. You're definitely seeing more and more of this on social media, in the news, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's created a pretty difficult scenario. All the calls for boycotting are basically coming out of China's, we'll call it, kind of questionable human rights record. Without kind of getting into details, I think we can all agree that it's at least questionable. There are some things that people are specifically pointing fingers at to show specific examples. Let's not get into that, but that's what's causing people to want to boycott. Now, with that knowledge, there's a couple issues with not issues, but a couple things that make it such a challenging scenario, and it's pretty darn hard to just cancel an Olympics. So, for starters, the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, is famously neutral in regards to global politics. So deciding to boycott an entire nation would essentially be the equivalent of placing sanctions on a foreign government, it feels like it would be forcing them into a far more political position than intended. So I would say any boycott coming from the IOC is pretty much out of question. I don't really see that as a possibility at all. Now, we're not here to say that their stance, the neutrality or that position, we aren't here to say whether they're right or wrong, but we certainly understand the position that they're in as a neutral organization. It makes it tough for them to do something like that. And then we also have the perspective of the athlete. And we got a quote from Mikaela Shiffrin, "You certainly don't want to be put in the position of having to choose between human rights like morality versus being able to do your job." And I think that's an important thing to consider. I think it's hard to put yourself in the mindset of an athlete who's been, training their whole life for the chance to go to the Olympics. And I can totally understand one of those athletes kind of feeling like my opportunity to do my job could potentially be taken away because of something that's, at least fundamentally out of their control, or historically out of their control, and none of these people can go back in time and change anything. I also understand the perspective of these are influential athletes, they have more of a platform to stand on, they have more of an audience, more of a voice to potentially improve these human rights issues. But I do think that's an important kind of balance to consider, is the goals and the career of these athletes versus the human rights issue. So I think this is a great one just to have open dialogue about and conversation and kind of see how other people around you feel. If you want to talk about it, leave a comment below. I'm sure other people will chime in and respond to you. So I think this could be a really cool place in the comment sections here on YouTube, just to have a quick conversation about, or maybe not quick, but a conversation about just people's opinions about this situation. It's tough for me personally to have a strong opinion either way. I love the Olympics. I love watching elite athletes. So there's that side of it. But I also like the human rights issue is far more serious than whether Mikaela Shiffrin's gonna win 4 gold medals or 3 gold medals. So yeah, it's an interesting situation, and I'd love to hear your opinions. Third topic of the week is kind of another touchy one. I guess less touchy, I suppose is fair to say. But we got a couple articles on kind of the state of ski patrolling in America, which is something that we've been talking about a lot. So we got an article from 5280.com that kind of looked closer at the unionizing decisions at Keystone and Breckenridge and did it from more of a subjective standpoint, kind of telling the story of the people that were involved, and particularly the story of 2 20-something-year-olds who patrolled at Keystone and quickly realized the difficulty of living in Summit County on a $12 per hour wage. I've lived in Summit County before, and honestly, I can't really imagine doing it at $12 an hour. It's a very, very expensive place to live. And there's a quote in there that kind of jumped out at us. Hourly pay for a job that involves saving lives matches that of a deli counter. Pretty interesting. You know, I do think that's, you know, ski patrollers, again, we've had this conversation a lot, but ski patrollers are medical first responders, and I think they should be paid as such. And then we got another article from the Park City Park Record. Ski patrollers there have been unionized since 2016, so it's kind of like giving us some insight into what the unionizing decisions could look like down the road. And unfortunately, it's not all just smooth sailing after that decision was made. The contract between the union and the resort basically ended, let's see if I can get this right, about 10 months ago. Ultimately was extended for an additional 9 months to May 1st, but as of May 1st, it does not exist. And right now, they're kind of stuck in this stalemate over contract negotiations, and no one really knows what's going to happen. So these two articles, you know, to us, they kind of just bring the question back up, like, where do ski patrollers fit in society in general? Like, what should they be paid? Should we be appreciating them more in general, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Another one to leave a comment here on this video if you have an opinion. Maybe you're a patroller, maybe you've been a patroller, maybe you want to kind of share your experience. But I think it's another really good conversation to have. Fourth topic of the week, this one's much lighter and much quicker. Plans for Virginia's first indoor ski area advance. And the developer is eyeing some expansion. So Alpine-X LLC has announced further plans for their facility in Virginia to include a hotel, a mountain coaster, zip lines, and food and beverage. So like literally all the things that you would expect to have at a ski resort, or at least a ski resort in 2020 that's putting in like the trendiest attractions for summer. Mountain coasters and zip lines seem to be the go-to activities for summer resorts right now. And they also announced that this will be the first of about 20 nationwide locations. There's a really good article from Forbes if you want to learn more, but to me it's an interesting topic. Like, will we look back in 40 years, will we look back at the year 2022 and Alpine-X LLC and say like that's when skiing really changed? I don't know, but time will tell, and who knows, maybe someday there will be more indoor skiing locations than outdoor skiing locations. I honestly would not be surprised if that happens, although I'm sure it will take a long time to get there. And then finally, we have our edits of the week. So first up is Real Ski Fee Tenet Explained. So we shared this edit a while back. It kind of plays around with the motion of time, or timelines and things moving backwards in time while other things are moving forwards in time. I thought that edit was extremely well done, and this was really, really entertaining for me. It's about 10 minutes long, and it goes through every single shot in the edit, and they tell you how they got it, the difficulties behind it. Really cool to see the behind the scenes. And then the second edit of the week is not a ski-related edit, but it's the world's largest mountain bike front flip from Bienvenido Aguado. Pretty unbelievable, if I recall. It's like a little over 100 feet. I can't remember exactly, but pretty unbelievable. Mountain bikers are going so big now, it practically looks like skiing, so might as well include a mountain bike edit, right? And that's it for Top 5 Fridays this week. I hope you guys all have a fantastic weekend, and don't forget to wish Bob a happy anniversary or congratulate Bob on 10 years of marriage. And we'll see you guys next week.